because it is imperative that we learn this thing called love languages. She said to introduce myself. My name is Terrence Haynes, of course. Um, I have a history in counseling and ministry. That is my basis. My doctorate is in ministry. Um, and that's my introduction.
Well, thank you
Okay,
for being with us today.
thank you.
So,
Okay.
first, I think we need to describe what love languages is. Would you like to do that, Dr. Bishop?
I sure can. I can do a little bit of that. So love languages. Now, Gary Chapman talks about this thing from the perspective of, and I want to use this word because I think it's a good word, and that is dialect or dialogue, right? And so when he talks about love languages, there's an understanding that it's not just a verbal language, meaning I don't just speak Mandarin or Spanish or English, but he talks about the language of love and how in this language that this form of communication, because that's what it is, it's a form of communication. This form of communication goes back and forth, and how you look at the language, how you see it, how you interact, and how you put yourself in that place of language.
What do you think are the benefits of knowing someone's love language? What are the benefits?
So there are a number of things as it relates to understanding someone's love language. And one of the most important thing is connection, to understand. If you, and I'm going to go here, if you guys don't mind, in Genesis, it talks about when they were building the tower to heaven, they were trying to build the Tower of Babylon. Babel, I'm sorry. They were trying to build it, and God disseminated it. He one language, and he separated the language. But then in the New Testament, he begins to talk about, and it's really before that, all the way from Genesis to Revelation, an ability to learn each other and to speak their language. And he did that. Jesus did that in throughout his walk, throughout his ministry. He did that through that time. And when you look at us as therapists or clergymen, we are all trying to get people, especially when you talk about coming together in relationship, in community, unity, all of it is talking about, let me get to understand your language. And so when we talk about that, that's what we're talking about, is that connection, that oneness.
And how do you think when we talk about the oneness, how does that affect um, people, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in public places, because we can't do the things that we used to do. So how does that affect that, or how does that impact that?
So how does it affect it? How does it affect your relationship, whether it's a colleague, whether you're talking parent-child, whether you're talking adult to adult, just friendship, or you're talking about husband and wife? In those relationships, what you find in the effect of it, the effect that comes from that is that sense of I hear you, I feel connected to you. I feel like you're listening to me. So when we talk about impact versus intent, what I say to you, Chantel or Charlene, versus what I'm saying to you or trying to communicate to you, and what you hear can be very different depending on your filters. And as therapists, we know we all have about 7 filters that we filter in information. And so how you receive what I'm saying impacts how you take that information, and then you go forward with that information.
And so how do you manage that in this setting in the pandemic at this point? Because we're not even we're gonna go into the other stuff. I know there are going to be people who wants to talk about their personal relationships, but how does this impact now? How do we get through? How do we get past this now, right now?
And so part of what I've discovered is, one, we got to understand who we are. And this right here is a time that we need to take advantage of understanding us. and being able to say, you know what, let me take this time. We've been here for a year now. Let me take this time to understand who I am. What are the things that I can really sit back and say, man, I've learned and understood myself not to be able to communicate with other people in an environment where they understand me.
Mhm.
How does this time impact us? It gives us an opportunity to reflect. It reflect on us, reflect on how we've received things, and then reflect on other people. And you have to learn how to improvise, adapt, and overcome as it relates to your social standing, being able to socialize with others, being able to see them in a different light, being able to receive them in a different light. I hope that answers your question as it
Yeah.
relates to right now.
Yeah.
Can I
You-
ask this question right quick? So, if we have a couple that's in a relationship, do you have to be healed? Because you say you have to know who you are. You have to know who you are to know your love languages and so on and so on. But what if they don't know who they are? How does that affect the
So
relationship?
that is an important question. I can labor that one for an hour. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm gonna do this really quick. Um, One of the things that we learn is that when we when we do things, we learn how to receive information with ourselves, and we then try to um, we try to then use ourselves as the rubric for how we then evaluate information. And I will tell you that doesn't work. I can't even, I'm not the one that created me. So in order for me to understand me, I need to tap in to that person that created me, because he and he alone is the only one that can truly break down who I really am. And the only way to do that is have a rubric that's external than me, because I can always accept me. I can, regardless of how wrong I am, I can always agree with me. That's just the truth of it.
Okay.
So, so what you're saying is the person in the healing process need to um, seek the Lord
I am
about
saying that.
internal healing, and in order for them to be able to either establish or to engage in this relationship with this person, because I can't
Right.
do me until I get right with me. That what you're saying?
Absolutely. He said in John chapter 3, when um man, slips my mind right now. Young man said, how do I enter the kingdom of heaven? And he said, you got to be born again.
Right.
And the young man says, well, I can't be born again, meaning I can't go back into my mother's womb. He said, no, no, you have to be born of the spirit. Because what we got to understand is there's a oneness. He said, I wish that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. Well, my soul is my mind, my will, my emotions,
Absolutely.
right? My intellect. All
Mhm.
of those things have to line up. So let's say that there was trauma in your life at a very young age. You took that and that became one of your filters,
Mhm.
whether that was abuse, whether that was, when I say abuse, meaning the abnormal use of, meaning whether it was sexual
Mhm.
trauma, whether there was physical or verbal trauma, or whatever that trauma was. Maybe you was in a situation like the Holocaust, or whatever the case may be, that was trauma. And so now you taking this information and it became one of your filters. Well, so if I take that as my filter, then there's
Mhm.
no way I can know who I am. And he says to come to him as
Mm.
little children. Well, why
Mhm.
children? Because what is the most innocent place in your life? When there is none, you're void,
Child.
you're nothing. You have to do everything for a baby.
Mhm.
You have to do everything because they don't know anything.
Yeah.
They're not
Right.
developed in that place. And when we look at Jean Piaget and Freud and Erickson and Jung and Ellison, and when we look at all of those theorists, they talk about these developmental stages and how important it is for those to be developed correctly. Well, how can I do it? It takes someone who has the knowledge to do it. I can't do it on my own.
Okay.
That's good.
So what I heard was that you have to learn your own love language first before you can love
You have
anyone
to learn your
one
own
else.
love language.
Okay.
Well,
That
let's
was
talk
good.
about that for a minute, okay? Let's talk about Gary Chapman's five languages of love, okay? And Chantel and I had started this process when we first came on, and I- and I just want to introduce them. It's the words of affirmation,
Hmm.
quality time, acts,
Physical touch.
gifts, and physical
Hmm.
touch.
Hmm.
Um, Dr. Haynes, were you able to take the five language? Were you able to take the quiz?
I did.
And what was
Quality
yours?
time was mine. My number one, if I'm not mistaken. Number one was quality time.
Really? And so, did you agree with that?
I don't know how much I agree with it. I think in this thing, when I learned about what Chapman did and understanding this thing, my thought is to me they run together because to me quality time then breeds physical touch, or you know what I mean. It does that. Now I'm not talking about the gifts. I mean, and depending on if your gift, you know, the gift is your thing, or word of affirmation is your thing, then yeah, it would man, it's that thing that kind of does the outward, gives you that outward expression of that inward feeling. Oh,
Mm.
that's good. The outward
Mm.
expression of that inward feeling. But you get that thing that touches you, and then there's an
Right.
outward expression. And to me, they run
Mhm.
so
Everything
parallel
on
to each other.
parallel.
It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
challenging to know the difference.
Yeah. Chantel, what was yours when you took your? Did you take yours
I,
again? Because I know we
I
took it a
actually,
year ago. You
I
take it
took it a
again?
year ago and I actually took it again today. So last
Okay.
year I wrote it down. It was quality time, acts of service, and physical touch. Today when I took it, it was quality time, acts of service, and words of affirmation and physical touch tied. They had to both
And
score.
so, was yours like true to who what you believe and feel?
Well, like I said on the video we did last year, I thought mine would be physical touch. And it's not. It's physical touch is the third. And I thought it would be also be receiving gifts because I like to receive gifts, but that's the last one.
Yeah.
Imagine
So
that.
I was I was surprised. I'm like, okay, I learned something about myself. So, but I do know that I like to spend quality time, and we don't have to do anything necessarily uh, extravagant. It could be just a walk, but as long as I'm spending time with that person or watching TV, but as long as I'm with that person, I'm fine. So I might.
Well, last year I took it, and I took it this year, and it came up again the same. It was words of affirmation, was the top, and then the next one was quality time. And I think that words of affirmations are important to me. Oh, let me interject something else before I say that. At work, we're doing a book study, a book read with some. With the assistant director and some more. They're doing it with supervisors, managers, and they're doing it with other staff. And Gary Chapman has another book called Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. And what I came up with again, because they talk about the same thing. Um, I came up with words of affirmation once again. And so, one of the things I realized, words are very important to me. Words are just important. What you say to me, what I say to you, is true. And I think when people say things, because sometimes my acts may not mimic what my heart is. Okay. And because my acts don't always mimic my heart, it's more so what I say, and what you say is more important, or what you don't say is important. So if you don't say anything to me, that means something. That's very important. So if I reach out to you and you don't reach back to me, you've said something. If you say to me something like, Chantel knows about this, I'm not going to go into it, but there was an incident that took place that somebody said some kind of labeled me, and I was deeply, I mean, I was broken to the point that I don't talk to the person anymore. Well, it's not that I don't talk to them. I don't want to be bothered anymore. And so, because words to me are important. So when you start labeling me, and I just think it's a conscious effort. When people say certain things, it's a conscious effort. And that's what you mean. What you say is what you mean.
Mhm.
And I think that's very important. We can spend time together, but I can spend time by myself because I'm an only child. And so
Me too.
I can do well by myself. I don't need you. So quality time is not that important. But what you say to me is important. So if you're the type that can have a language and a conversation with me, that probably tickles my ear more than anything else. That we can talk. If you're intelligent, we can talk. That's important. Also, even in the workplace, I think it's very important because in sharing my appreciation for my staff, uh, sharing, talking to clients, it's about what I say is so important. And I'm always cognizant, I try to make myself cognizant of what I'm saying, you know, how I'm saying it. Because again, my deed may not always match my heart. And I have to clear that because I could forget something and not be someplace, but that doesn't mean I don't care, you know? So, for some people, acts of service is so important, and it's not on my high, it's on my low list, because again, what I do all the time doesn't always match. But and not intent, it's probably because I got too much stuff going on. So that's probably the reason. So I just realized that my my words of affirmation are extremely important. And I'm like Chantel, buying me stuff. I'm a gift giver. I'm open and giving, okay, and giving gifts. But I'm not really one to you give it, that is not important for you to buy me stuff, and when people buy stuff and I don't know if Chantel ever experienced this, but when you're an only child, you get a lot of stuff. I did. I got a lot of stuff. And after a while, it doesn't have a meaning anymore. It's just like, okay, all right, thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I was the only child and the only granddaughter. So
So what am I? I'm an only grandchild too. So just to get all the gifts is just not because I always got them. So they don't sound the same, they don't have the same
mhm,
weight.
I understand.
So let me chime in there because I think this is a important point. Being an only child versus myself being a child of 18. It is a vast difference between being an only child and a child of, I'm just going to say more than
Right,
five, right?
right,
Um, because you may not have gotten gifts like that, like you guys are
right.
describing,
Hmm.
and that's okay. Even though you want it and that type of thing, you don't find yourself in that place. But here's the thing that I want to bring up here: how many of us have used that as a thing to protect ourselves? You know what? Forget it. I don't even want it. I'm good with that. And so we use that as a defense mechanism. That's the words I
Hmm.
was looking for, a defense mechanism. You've learned to say, I don't want to be my authentic self because I'm safe. I'm safe just saying that I'm okay not getting, or I'm okay not hearing those words, or I'm okay not having the time, or I'm okay, not having that physical touch, when the truth is your true authentic self And so when you talked about earlier about the effects of those things affect people, whether you want to admit it or not, it affects you. There is an effect. Now, how you deal with that, how you respond to that is very important. It's very important. How you get over it, how you learn to then evaluate yourself to say, God, show me, illuminate that light on those dark areas of my life so that I can then be healed. So that as Brene Brown talks about that vulnerable place, because there are some vulnerable places that you don't get to because you don't really want to be healed from where you were. And those defense mechanisms will make that happen.
So do you think that they're created because we lack these areas of, as we have identified, the love languages, but those emotional areas that are connected to those love languages, do you think if those are faulty, that's what creates this?
So I believe that we all have a way, as they say, to create these defense mechanisms. And I can cry for so long because I'm not getting something. And eventually, you know what? Forget it. You learn to say, you know what, or your body, your system learns to say, you know what, let me protect me. So it's a safe place.
It's a shutdown.
It's just shut down. And let me protect me. And that goes back into the unconscious or subconscious mind, right? But and so you put it there, repression or suppression, whichever word you want to use there, you put it there to say, you know what, that doesn't affect me. Doesn't affect
me. When it really does.
Really does.
Absolutely.
And we don't communicate it. We talk.
Well, it comes out other ways. We may not communicate it, but it'll come out.
But I like what you just said. You know, we don't always communicate that. So how do we, now we've opened up another door, how do we articulate that when it's one of those dark places? How do we come to the point of identifying that that's what that is?
So one,
especially if we're not going to counseling.
That's what I was about to say. One, we probably want to seek some therapy. That's the one thing, because you know, on the inside, in the deep part of who you are, you're like, man, I'm missing something. There's something that I'm missing. And I can't necessarily identify that thing. I can tell you, you know, going through the counseling program at Amberton, when we got into dysfunctional behavior, and you start looking at the DSM and you begin to identify some of those dysfunctional things, you'd be like, man, I might be a little bit of, you know, and so you're able to identify you to say, and so as a therapist with a client, you know, to be able to step back and say, okay, well, talk to me about, you know, how you feel when you get such and such, or when somebody is touching you, or when you get those words of affirmation. You're at work and somebody give you that pat on the back, that attaboy is what they call it. You know, what do you feel? Is that where you feel accomplished, achieved, of whatever? And so you go through life and you're growing in this place. Remember, I talked about I wish that you prosper, be in health, even as you're so proud. You're prospering in this place of intellect and your business, so you know that part of it. But emotionally, you get around people who you have to now be close to, and how shut down you are. Because you're not getting those things, they're not fulfilling. And so you want to understand, well, why is there such a dichotomy here? Why is it such incongruency here?
Because your emotions stop growing.
Right. And so that's when you want to sit back and say, let me go and talk to somebody. Or maybe you're sitting under someone who's teaching and they get in First Peter and he's talking about hope and holiness. And then he starts talking about those things that are your emotions, being kind, loving, submitting. He starts using those kind of words. What do? Do you cringe? Oh, no, I'm good. I'm all right. You shut down.
Right.
You shut down. Chapman talks about, you know, people listening, and we know, just depends on who you are. Researchers have said people listen for 7 to 17 seconds, maybe, and then they shut down.
Mhm.
When you start talking about something that's touching their heart, how much we're going to get on the defense, how much we're going to back up, how much we're going to walk away from that thing like, no, because that's that soft spot for me. That's that part that my heart will hurt because of.
Mhm.
We got to understand it. God said, guard your heart. He didn't say protect your heart. He said, guard your heart.
And Chapman also talked about, it's funny because because I'm reading the appreciate the work appreciation in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the authentic, being authentic,
Absolutely.
and being able to recognize appreciation when it's authentic. And
Right.
sometimes it's not because they need to be authentic, it's about you need to be authentic,
Right. Right.
and how do you find that authentic self, like you just said, and being able to find that thing that's inside of myself if I'm not whole.
Absolutely.
And going back to what Chantel said earlier, if you're not healed and you're not right, and here you are bringing somebody else into that brokenness or
Right.
that shatteredness
Absolutely.
and that's all I keep saying, those broken pieces, you're bringing somebody else into that, and all they're doing is seeping through the cracks,
Right.
and then
Right.
you wonder why things ain't working still. Why am I
Absolutely.
not working? Why am I not happy? And you know, so
Absolutely.
it's more than just the language, it's the
Yeah.
individual.
Absolutely. And all of it is languages. All of it, you just think it's not language, but all of it touches on that place that we call language, that we're referring to as a language. And so it's important that you pay attention to it. How many arguments have started out of the fact that, man, listen, it touched that soft spot for you? Or maybe you didn't get what you thought you were supposed to get, and it touched that soft spot for you. Um, you guys saying, I was an only child, so this stuff doesn't matter to me. And how many people, for example, Valentine's Day, they
Mm,
put up a defense mechanism. You know what? This is a worldly holiday, and there's no dispute with that. It is a worldly holiday, right?
right.
It was created by
Mhm.
manufacturers, whatever. But at the same token, that was your thing. You really want gifts. You really want to receive that thing, or you're smiling because, man, I just got that thing, right? And your insides begin to leap like John and Jesus connecting in the womb. I mean, it began to leap. And you're like, what is that thing? What is that? Why am I feeling this way? Well, no, let me shut that down. But if we think about it, the 10 that went to see Jesus to say, I wanted to be healed, right? He said, okay, go, you're being healed. You're healed. Go back and tell the priest. But that one that came back was whole again after he
Mhm.
came back just to say, thank you, God. Right? So why was the difference? Why was he whole? Why did he use those two words, being healed versus being whole? Because as a diabetic or something like that, somebody get a limb cut off, they can be healed, right?
Mhm.
But they're not whole.
Right.
Being whole is that limb coming back.
Mhm.
I'm done. I'll go ahead.
Well, I was thinking while you was talking, what came to my mind years ago, I met an individual. I don't want to go into all the dynamics. I just want to say what happened. I met an individual, and I had a conversation with this person. I mean, it was just a conversation, and it seemed like I knew this person for years.
Right,
And just like you said, there were areas in the conversation,
right,
just in the conversation. This person didn't really know me. I didn't really know them. But we had such a conversation. There was a kindred, there was a connection. And like you said, things begin to leap. You begin to become, lifted, just by the word. And that's what I mean about how important words are, because it wasn't, there's no intent, there's nothing, there's no strings, there's nothing going on.
right.
It was just a mere conversation, and that conversation transcended to the point of, you know talking about everything. I mean, intellectually, just, mindfully, whatever. And that created a whole new, area that had not been tapped. had
Mhm.
not been, and I'm talking about just friendships now. And that's what I was saying earlier when we were talking about identifying this discussion today. It's not always about romance. Sometimes it's just relational, you
Absolutely.
know, just being able to be relational. And relational has to do with connections,
Mhm. It
you know,
does.
and in those connections, how we build. I mean, yes, you know, when you said that, and that was a good point you brought about the 10 that were healed, and the one came back and they was made whole.
Mhm.
But he was made whole because there was a
Right.
relationship
Absolutely.
that he recognized with the master of the healing.
Absolutely.
There's a
Absolutely.
relationship,
Absolutely.
you know. And so that's what, you know, and I think that's where when we talk about the languages of love, you know, love creates us to be, is a multitude. It says it covers a multitude of sin, but
Right.
it also, love is what Christ
Yes.
built, created everything for. I say built, it's not
Absolutely.
built. Created everything for, because of the love he had not only for mankind, but the world, everything, just
Right.
love, you know. And when we, and Chantel and I were talking last year about the whole concept of the love thing, you know,
Mhm.
it was more than just romance,
Right.
getting hearts and getting all these things, you know. And again, I'm not downplaying Valentine's Day. I'm not. I think it's great.
Right.
And I think it's wonderful. Okay. But I think it's deeper,
Right.
Absolutely.
It is.
because when it's over, what
You
then?
still need to be relational when it's over.
Right. And at this point, where we are today with all the things that are going on around the world in our lives, people losing people, you know, how do we become relational when we can't even be together? We can't even sit together anymore because guess what? I have to wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I haven't been to the mall in a year, literally. Okay. And that's my choice. I haven't been to the mall. I am a, and as you both know, I like to go out to dinner. I love going out to dinner. Okay. Even Bishop knows I like going out to dinner. Okay. And I haven't been in a year. Okay. Not because, you know, I can't, is because I won't, because I don't want to feel like I want to expose myself,
Right.
Mhm.
you know. And I just think it cuts into my being relational,
Absolutely.
you know. And I think a lot of people during this time, it's more than just, and I think they need that. You know, I have a page. My page is on now, and so I want to say hey to the people who are watching on my page. If you have any questions, and on Chantel's page, if you have any questions, please shoot your questions out, because we will be answering questions live. But I have my page, Amazing Couples, and one of the things that I focus on is relationships, you know, how to improve a relationship, even a good
Mhm.
one, you know, how to make it
Right.
better, you know, how to work on relationships that are not doing so good, you know. And communication is probably one of the biggest things
It
is
is.
that goes on. You know, people
It's
think that infidelity is the killer of a relationship. It's really not. The number one killer
mhm.
of a relationship is
Communication.
finance. It's
Yeah,
finance.
finances too.
Okay. And so, but the reason a person has a problem in their finances is because nobody's communicating.
Right.
Because if I'm having a conversation with you, I could talk about why
Mhm.
we broke, right?
And it's
You know,
often the tone of the way you say things in a conversation that turns people off.
with a multitude of things. Bishop, you want to say something? I see you on the edge of your seat. What
Well,
jump in?
there's a couple of things that Chantel just said, and you also in that when you think about, I'm going to use your example tomorrow. We're going out to eat, right? And you think about quality time. How many of us have gone and become people watchers, just going out and to a restaurant or something? And you can point out those relationships that are in the dating phase versus those that's in the marital phase
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because of the time. Listen to when we talk about, and all of us have been trained in attention, being active listeners,
Mhm.
right? And in a dating relationship, you are an active listener. I mean, you're sitting there playing footsies under the table, your hands are touching, you are looking at each other, especially before your meal comes. You're looking at each other, you're attentive to that person.
Mhm.
But then look over to your left or right and watch the one that's married and see how different those two places are. And they're supposed to be spending that quality time with each other. You know what I mean? So you pay attention to those things. Well, what happens in the home or what happens at the job with your peer relationship and how attentive are you in those type of situations, that quality time where that person hears you. And believe it or not, as a manager, as a supervisor, as a CEO, you still got to pay attention to your subordinates because they feel that. They feel that you're giving them that authentic time and you are right there with them. I mean, of course it's different when you have, you got to deal with 14, 15 or 1,000 people, but those times that you get that one-on-one, watch how different that employee is. You give them that time and you hear them attentively.
You get better work out of them, and they'll
Absolutely.
feel appreciated. And
Absolutely.
they'll do harder work and probably are more productive if they feel appreciated. But if they feel
Absolutely.
like they're a number, they shut down. This is just a job.
Right. It's
Just here
just
for a
task.
paycheck.
It's just task. Conversely, in a relationship, husband wife type relationship, when you're giving them that time, and Gary Chapman, he says even with the words of affirmation, his definition of encouraging words to inspire, to encourage, feeling insecure, which is all we have really. He talks about kind words. He talked about humble words, right? But also in quality time, giving someone your undivided attention. Um, and then he then describes um, quality conversation versus that quality time. And so quality conversation versus that quality time and what that means and how different they could be. And he describes the difference between words of affirmation and quality conversation because they're not the same.
No. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
So, quality conversation, he says, um, sympathetic dialogue where two people are sharing their experiences, thoughts, feelings, and desires in a friendly, uninterrupted context, right? That's quality conversation. And so he uses that to then talk about how we can hear people, how we're hearing their feeling. It's a dialect, right? It's not the words that's coming out of their mouth. It's not me giving you words of affirmation. It is me just sitting there uninterrupted, attentive, just really paying attention to who you are, not watching TV, not doing something else, not working, whatever that eating, whatever. I am really digesting what you're saying. And not only just the words, but hearing your feeling. What is the emotion behind what you're saying? How are you feeling? That's a language that's nonverbal. That's a language that's nonverbal. You're listening to the verbal, but what you're really communicating is the nonverbal.
But in that quality time, you need to somehow or another be intentional because that comes back
Yes,
from that authentic you. You
absolutely.
know, because one of the things it talks about is that this language of love for quality time is undivided attention, making you that special one without distraction, like you said, of the other interferences, just giving that, but with that comes intention.
Right.
You
Right.
just don't, it doesn't happen just because, oh, okay, I'm just going to do this today. That's
Mhm.
not real. That
Absolutely.
you have to be intentional
Right.
when you have to do quality time. And I think when a person wants quality time and when a person expresses quality time, the intentionality is
Are
there.
two different.
you know. And I think a lot of times people don't look at that. They'll verbalize it or want people to do stuff, but I think it goes two-way street.
Absolutely.
I don't think it has to. It's a one-way street. I just, like I said, my second one is quality time, and I don't mind spending time, but I think
You could be by
that,
yourself.
well, not only that, but if I'm going to do that, there has to be intentionality,
Right.
and I just that
No phones.
I've made the effort, and if you make the effort, it's appreciated.
Let
It's
me
Right.
quote exactly what he said. He said, quality conversations look different than words of affirmation, in that words of affirmation focus on what we are saying, whereas quality conversation focus on what we are hearing.
Right. The heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And many times, and I'll be honest, as a man in this, here to talk about men, we don't necessarily hear your heart. We hear the words coming out your mouth, and it's, hey, let's do this, right? And whether you're at home, whether it's that kind of relationship, or even on the job, as men, most of the time we're not hearing what the stuff behind the in between stuff. We're hearing the words that's coming out of your mouth, and this is what we need done. So then it becomes that again. That adds another twist to it, and that is, report talk versus report talk, and where women are more rapport and men are more report. Here's the report. Women are, let me build this relationship. Let me get the rapport. Let me, and so that's where it is important. It's important when you build a relationship. It's important to understand so many different nuances to relationship.
So how can I get you as a man or any man to hear my heart, not just a report?
especially when you're only at the report stage.
Right. How do I get that man out of the report
Tell that
stage?
story. Yeah, share that one.
So
How do you do
one,
that?
you have to communicate that because again, depending on where you
But if he's
came
not
from,
gonna hear you, how are you gonna communicate that?
well, and that's
Right.
a true statement, but at least you put it out there. So that's the first thing. He said one could plant a seed, somebody else would come along and water the seed, but God would increase it. So you got to plant the seed, because I've never heard that. I don't know anything about that. I grew up in this in this family,
We could plant the seed, but
Absolutely.
I don't want anybody else watering it. I need to water it in.
I don't mean water it that way. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, that's true. You got me on that one. That was good. That was pretty smooth. Nevertheless, it still exists. And when I say that, I mean it from the perspective that, maybe, somebody, okay, communicating the fact that this way, kind words, right? So one of the things he talks about is kind words. So he uses an example of a relationship where the man comes in and he says, man, can we not ever have anything good on the table? Now, can you not just clean up the house? Well, what if his words was different? In that, I really appreciate when you make quesadillas. I like the way you make quesadillas. What did that just speak to you?
Oh, I'm gonna make more quesadillas.
You're gonna make more quesadillas, right? Because you found out that's something that they like. What he heard then, what you heard was relationship. And so how many times will you communicate that to me so that I can understand that what you're really saying? Man, one of the other examples Chapman used in the book was she wanted her bedroom or bathroom painted or whatever. And she's like, well, today is a good day. It's a perfect day. It's pretty outside. It's a good day to paint. But you're over here working on your computer. He still hadn't done it. It's a month, 2 months down the road. He hadn't done it. And Gary Chapman said to her, well, have you ever just went to him and said, man, what you're doing on that computer and how you do it absolutely is wonderful. It's marvelous how you're doing it. You don't never have to say a word about paint no more. He already heard you say you wanted the room painted. Guess what's going to happen the more you feed that? Just it speaks to his ability, his skill, his knowledge. Man, he's going to feel good. Chest going to stick out a little bit. He's going to go paint that room.
So you're saying stroke the ego a little bit.
And I'm not telling you, so we can get that as a negative connotation,
Mhm.
stroke the ego, or we can look at it in a positive one, whereas I'm actually showing love. I'm being an example of that love and relationship because now I'm touching the place. That's planting that seed. Guess what's going to happen? At some point, he's going to reciprocate that. He's going to reciprocate that. And that doesn't happen all the time, but it's a means of communication. It's a means of making someone aware of what that thing is. Because look, Charlene said, well, I don't need no gifts, but I'm a giver.
Right.
Most people project what they want. I'm not saying in her situation, but most people project what they want.
I disagree.
I said most people. I didn't say everyone. It's not 100%, but most people project what they want. In that, if I want physical touch, I'm going to give physical touch. Even though you're saying, well, no, that's not what I want. I want words of affirmation, or I want, these kind words. Guess what's going to happen? He's going to touch. He's going to be like, but I gave you quality time. Remember yesterday when we was just sitting on the couch and I was rubbing your leg, we was watching TV. He gave what he wanted or she wanted or whatever.
Right.
You're saying that's not quality time. Quality time is you look at me in my eyes and we're sitting here engaged in this conversation, even if it's the nothingness of the conversation, but the fact that you're sitting here.
Right.
The fact that you're engaged in this conversation. So he's projecting what he wants, or she's projecting what she wants without necessarily saying it.
Well, I was thinking about what you said. I just want to inject what you said. I think, and this just came to me. Mm-hmm. I think why I'm a gift giver is to hear back, thank you.
Right.
Right. It's not about the gift. It has nothing to do with the gift. Even though I did the gift, it's what happens after the gift. And I really believe that's what that's how I think. I think that now that you said that, I don't think it has to do with the gifts. I think it has to do with what's said.
Well, Charlene, thank you for that gift. It was real beautiful. The words of affirmation.
Right. Like, oh, I'm just so happy. Because at Christmas time, right? When I've given Nicole all she wanted for Christmas, she's the type that's like, Mom, girl, you just did your thing. And all of this, that's the key. It's not what you give me. And it's funny,
we lost Bishop.
Oh, he must have froze. I think he froze on my other one.
No, he's gone.
I guess he'll come back on.
Okay.
But because he was hanging on my other one over here. There he goes. Come back on. I think what happens is that just what it looks like after it's done, that's the thing that seems to make me feel good. Because if a person doesn't say thank you, I think I feel a little rejected. Like I just expect this. And so then I stop giving because that has nothing to do with giving. It doesn't connect anymore. So I'm just saying, I'm being transparent for a moment.
Right.
And I just think that, when you brought that up about, one thing has to do with another, but I don't know if that always fits. I think it's knowing the individual and just being honest. Just want to say one more thing and then I'll stop. You said that when I just lost my thought. It just went in and out. Okay. Shows my age. Okay, go ahead, Bishop. I just forgot what I was going to say.
So you mentioned, I like what they do after the fact. And I just want to, if you don't mind, let me use that as an example. Not necessarily about you, but just let me use that as an example.
You can use me as an example.
So how many times have we, because we didn't get that thing, which is that words of affirmation or whatever, right? So we create something that's going to give us that. So, okay, well, I'm gonna give now because I know I'm gonna get this word of affirmation by just simply saying thank you. I'm gonna create this thing that I know you want so that I can get what I need. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
learn people and I learn what they need in different situations because I know if I do this thing, I get what I need to.
Mhm.
Or I get to a place in life where dang, I always was the kid that was belittled, I was ridiculed, I was whatever. Well, let me find a way to fit in. So I'm going to make sure that I meet your need. I meet what you want me to do so that I can feel connected.
But
Mhm.
isn't that human nature though?
It
Isn't
is in a sense.
that
It is absolutely because we
it's
all want to fit
what
in.
we
We
do
all want to be
Right.
just to
connected.
be, I'm gonna say it again,
Mhm.
relational. That's what we do.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
I don't see it, I don't think it's manipulative. I think it's honest when you can see yourself, you know, and who you are. Chantel and I just had this conversation,
Right.
okay, with she and I. And one of the things, you know, like I said to her, was it's real important what people say to me. It
Absolutely.
Mhm.
really is. It just, I didn't realize how important it was until some things transpired.
Mhm.
And it's really important what I say to you
Right.
Mhm.
and that you understand where I am. You
Right.
Mhm.
know, she and I, we've become friends, real friends quickly. And
Hmm.
I'm not, well, it's been a few years I've known Chantel now,
Mhm.
but we became friends. I knew her at church, but we became friends quickly. Friends,
Mhm.
sister girls quickly.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, and I can think of an incident that took place that words were involved. Well, action, I'm gonna say an action on
Mhm.
my part, because I wasn't even thinking like that. I wasn't even thinking the way she
Perceived
was
it.
thinking about the situation. That wasn't important to me. But then when she verbalized what she said, that hit me. That just it hit me. It hit me hard because I never want to hurt her feelings. I
Absolutely.
never want to put myself in a position to make her feel that I am doing something negative with her because that's not my intention with her.
Right.
You know, like I know it's just such an only child thought I'm about to have, but it's like if I don't want to be bothered, I won't.
Right.
Mhm.
That's the way I am. Okay.
Mhm.
And I'm one of those people, like I don't when I was a kid, if you don't want to play with me, and if I didn't like you like that, it was okay. You ain't gotta play with me. I'm good. And that's how I am as an adult. It's not right all the time, but
Mhm.
that's the way I think. But if it's somebody that I care about, really care about genuinely,
Mhm.
let's talk about being authentic.
Mhm.
It hurts me to say something that will hurt them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay. It hurts me. It just like it boomerangs back to me.
Right.
So then I'm trying to fix it. And I'm not good at fixing stuff because it has to do with words. And the more I've studied this, the more I realize how words do make an impact. So one of the things my new little mantra is for 2021 is I need to sit back and think about what I've said, think
Mhm.
about what I've done, especially the people I care about. So
Mhm.
if I care about you and you know, well, they wouldn't know, but Chantel knows. Because like I said,
Mhm.
we have this conversation.
Mhm.
So the other day we were supposed to connect to do something, gig. Yo, my duties. I was tired. I didn't even call her. I was supposed to call her. I didn't. But you
Right.
know what? Because she knows me and she knows what my scheduling is, everything else. I realized that, you know, she didn't say anything. She never brought it up. We just
Right.
went on like usual. And
Right.
that said to me, wow, our friendship has gone to the next level. Because technically she could have said, I thought you were supposed to call. I thought you were supposed to do this. I thought you were supposed to do that. She knows I'm doing 500 other things.
Mhm.
Has nothing to do with her, nothing. Okay.
Mhm.
But she understands. Let's get the job done. Let's do what we're supposed to do. And we went on, you know. She said something to me right before we had this process. She had texted me some things, and I'm like, really? I wanted to pick up the phone and call her, but I knew that she really didn't want to be bothered. She didn't want to be bothered. So I didn't call her, but my instinct was pick up the phone, see what's wrong, see what's the matter, what's going on, what's wrong, so important, and but I kept texting her back these one little statements. See, there you go, my words again. And so I'm just saying, in being relational, I think sometimes when we fall short, it's just not understanding ourselves. And I think you said that in the very beginning.
Or not knowing ourselves.
We got to know us. I got a couple of Echo. Hey, Echo, how you doing? Congratulations
Hey, Echo.
on your business. Okay. He said giving grace from a place of understanding yourself and the other person. Yes. Yes.
I'm a grace giver.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So let me say this too, though, with that thought in mind, giving grace. How many times do we do things based on us? As you said, sometimes we get busy with whatever and we don't think about the other person, right? Or we think about them in that, oh man, I messed up, I did whatever, and so I want to fix it. But how many of them shut down? Like, you know what? And forget it. I'm not gonna do this no more. Right? They may not ever say that, but they shut down because that one need that they needed at that time didn't come through for them. And when I say need, I'm not saying something they need, some monetary need or something like that, but just that their love language said this. One of the things that psychologist William James said was that possibly the deepest human need is the need to feel appreciated.
Say that again. That's a good one.
That possibly the deepest human need is the need to feel appreciated.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And how do we do that even better? How do we do that? I think I like what Echo said about giving grace, but giving grace shows that I do appreciate you, and that's why I'm able to do that. But how do we do that when we don't understand grace or we're not living in that whole area? How do we do that? How do we have that conversation with our loved ones? How do we fix this?
I think we need to be healed and whole.
What does that mean?
To be able to.
Because I have people grace. Who are watching now or who are going to watch this later who don't go to church. Okay, so what does that mean? We have to be able to reach all of them.
So be whole. I have to learn how to be kind. Have to be patient. Have to learn how to suffer long. How to be long suffering. I got to learn how to love. When I say love, I'm not talking about an adjective. I'm talking about the noun love. God said, I am love. He is love.
You have to heal from your
You
trauma.
have to be healed from that, right? And so to be whole means I'm being an imitator of Christ. Okay, you said, well, not everybody listening goes to church. Well, let me talk about how to be an imitator of Christ. Let me do it this way. Laying aside all malice, all deceit, all hypocrisy, envy, all evil speaking, as newborn babies, desire the pure milk of the word that you may grow thereby. If needed, you have tasted that the Lord is gracious. He says, be holy, for I am holy. How many of us can walk in that place of true holiness? How many of us can, when you talk about that healing and what I need to talk about as it relates to that healing, there are some things that exist in your life, whether it was past stuff. We're talking about languages. How has somebody affected who you are? Whether that's your parents, whatever that is, you know it on the deepest part of you. You know that you have been covering up and just walking in this place of inauthentic behavior, inauthenticity. And there's some stuff inside you that needs to be freed.
Mhm.
And you want to be free, but I don't know how to be vulnerable. I don't know how to just let it go because I still need to protect myself because I don't want nobody ever to affect that place in me again.
Right. Right.
I don't want nobody to ever hit that place for me because that place right there is hurtful. It is a deep hurt. It is a cut. And
Mhm.
many times I heard one preacher years ago said we put a band-aid on the wound, but the inside is not healed. And so every once in a while, somebody will knock the band-aid off, and what does a wound do? It opens back up again. And it's so deep that
And
we
all.
don't close it from the inside. And when the surgeon goes in, they put a stitch on the inside first, and
Mhm.
then they stitch the outside. But
Mhm.
we're so used to covering up the outside, and
Mhm.
it's so fragile that it doesn't take much to hit that spot and it open up again.
That's right.
Well, you got to learn how to stitch that inside. Well, how do I do that? I do that. I don't care who you are. You have to. You have to give yourself because it's not just your body, it's not just your soul, but your spirit is being affected. And we don't take that into consideration is that our spirit is being affected.
Right.
And your spirit, man, I don't care who you are, I don't care where you come from, whatever. Your spirit is being affected because we're made up of three parts:
Right.
your spirit, mind, and your flesh, or
Mhm.
your spirit, body, and flesh, right? And so you have to say, you know what? I've been trying this all my life with just me, my
Mhm.
my my way of doing it, and thinking all this other stuff is going to help me. But your spirit man never got healed.
Right. Right. Right.
And so there's a book called Please Stop Laughing at Me. And this young lady, and I hope that you'd read that book, but it says, Please stop laughing at me. She was a marketing executive, but it was her 10-year reunion, high school reunion. It was time for that reunion. And this lady was great when it came to marketing and doing business and doing what she was doing. She was absolutely wonderful at doing that. CEOs loved this lady, right? But when it was time for her reunion, a 10-year reunion, and in her mind, she knew I'm going to go back to the people that I grew up with. But they had bullied her. They was whatever. This lady was having a panic attack. She sat there in the book, it's in there. She sat down and she could not move because her body just went into shutdown
Mm.
because she never dealt with that stuff. She was great when it came to marketing, but not when it came to something that was going to be touching her most vulnerable place. She
Okay.
couldn't do it. It affected her.
Mhm.
So it's
Because the
called
body keeps the
Stop
score.
Laughing at Me.
Yes, please stop laughing at me.
The book I'm reading right now is uh, The Body Keeps the
Yeah.
Score,
Yeah, it's a good book.
about
It's a
trauma.
trauma book.
The
Hmm.
body keeps score.
Body keeps the score.
Hmm.
Hmm. It's a good book. It's by what's his name?
Bessel
Right.
Vander Kolk.
I'm going to say this about the
Posted,
keeping score thing. When we talk about
I just
um,
posted the suggestion, powerful book, Body Keeps the Score. Yes, I've read The Body Keeps the Score. It is a powerful book on trauma, looking at trauma. Even it starts off about war veteran, and I think it's very, very,
PTSD.
yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm. But I put on there a literary suggestion. Bishop Haynes, please stop it's laughing at me. I put laughter at me. Please stop laughing at me. What the mind forgets is remembered. I'm sorry, Echo.
He's taking a he's showing the book on the screen, showing.
Oh, okay. And what's her name? What's the author's name?
Please Stop Laughing at Me by Jody Blanco.
Jody
Blanco, Blanco.
Blanco. Okay.
Blanco, yes.
Echo says, what the mind forgets is remembered by the body. Thanks, Bishop.
That's true.
That's good. That's good. And it's not that the mind forgot, it's just in the unconscious mind, you know?
Hmm.
You've
It's
repressed
been
it in
buried.
the unconscious mind. Defense mechanism.
Yep.
You can continue, Bishop. I'm just putting in the literature suggestions. I want people to be able to have something to take back as well.
Okay. So words of affirmation, we talked about words of affirmation, quality time. Um, we have kind of hit on receiving gifts a little bit. Um, uh, Giving gifts, receiving gifts, that type of thing. Or somebody put on my Facebook, giving could also fit in acts of service. Um, Giving could also fit in that place of active services. Active services. I tell people, and my aunt years ago, I said, she asked me something about relationship, and I told her, I said, well, what I've learned and understood is that, and again, as I said to Chantel earlier about not manipulating, not this thing is not about manipulation, but one of the things that I've learned is that you have to go in, and I tell people in counseling, um, if there's nothing wrong with picking up a load of clothes and washing it for her. Don't expect her to come in from work and do everything. You could be the sous chef, right? You come in a little bit earlier, what she's cooking, go ahead and do the sous chef. She may come in and cook it, put it together and cook it, but there's nothing wrong. You're talking about a smile on her face, just the fact that you cut up some onions. You could go the deal on TV and that chopper thing that you could use to chop up onions or have it in a bowl, have it all prepared for them or whatever. There are ways that you could do things when we talk about acts of service that could be astronomical to your relationship. It could be at your job, again, to initiate, somebody needs some help. And you're just going in and you're taking a step and initiating. You hear them saying something and you go in there and do it, or at least start the process. Even if it's wrong, at least you started the process. At least you made an effort to say, look, I care about you. Even as a supervisor, I'm talking about all the way back when I was military. Even as a supervisor, I could go in and help somebody. I didn't have to just have my arms crossed all the time just because I sat in the office of supervisor or manager. I don't do that even as a bishop. I don't just have my arms crossed. I don't have a problem with going in and sweeping the bathroom floor or cleaning the toilet or whatever, because I want to lead by example, because it builds relationship. It builds the relationship. And they see that you care about them. So those situations, and sometimes people get really selfish. And I'm teaching my children that same thing, about sharing. You may not want to watch Doc McStuffin, but how many times does this little girl come over and sit with you and watch X-Men or something Justice League or whatever, and she's just sitting there. She's not interested in that. But then the one time she said, "Well, can you watch this show with me?" What is she? And I asked the question, "What is she really saying to you?" Well, Dad, she just want my attention. She just wants some attention. And I said, that's relationship. That's relationship. But when you get up and run off and go play when it's her turn to watch a show, it shows that you don't care about her. That only when it's your thing are you okay with. So train them up in the way they should go. You got to redirect that behavior as a child, right? And so how many of us are as adults are in this thing and we're selfishly doing it because this is my way. This is how I want it. This is what I want. And how has that worked out for you?
I agree. I
That
can't
was good. Huh?
I can't hear anymore. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
I can't.
Nobody was saying anything. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
What I was gonna, our last one we have here is physical touch. And I think you touched on this earlier, but I want to say something about it because I think sometimes, again, it's romanticized, and I want to talk about it in a relational manner. We have touched on trauma, um, and we've touched on some other things here today, and I think that one of the things, because it talks about here with Gary Chapman, he says that people with physical touch as their love language feel loved when they receive physical signs of affection, okay, and whatever that may be. Um, the roots go back to our childhood. They don't just start as adults, but they go back to our childhood in terms of the affection, the deep affection that we felt loved by our parents or even whoever our caretakers were. Bishop, you want to expound on that a little bit?
So this one is a very, very touchy one for many people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had people who I was counseling, whatever, but I've had people, and research shows you, it talks about this thing. So somebody who's been molested or whatever, raped or whatever when they were a child, um, and you go to two different ends of the continuum depending on who you are. You're either extremely promiscuous and that's the way you feel love is because that's what happened. They told you, oh, I love you. And they sitting there raping you. They're taking something, molesting you. I love you and don't tell nobody this, whatever. This is love. And so you begin to identify that thing with love.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very, very serious. Or maybe somebody touched the breast or somebody did something to you, and that becomes equated with love. And that's not that situation. So what happens when you get in marriage or relationship? Well, if they're not touching you, you don't feel like they love you. And so you got to be careful as professionals, as pastors, as supervisors, as managers. You got to be careful because people touch. They'll just touch you. I saw you the other day just touch Chantel on the hand or something. You guys started laughing in your little snippet that y'all did the other day, right? And you
Oh,
just
right.
touched on it.
Touchy feely,
Right,
right?
right. But some people, depending on who they are,
Right.
that could be a very sensitive place for them, right? Because people are touchy. They are, some of my colleagues in, military that was from Louisiana, they always want to hit you on the shoulder. Hey, bro, listen to this, and you like, you got to keep hitting me like this, right? All they're doing is getting your attention, right? But that's just them touching. How many people, as far as I used to work HR, you have to do workplace violence and sexual harassment classes and all of these things, and you're teaching adults. And how many times does the third person see you touch somebody on the shoulder or whatever, and now they're saying sexual harassment, and now you're up on charges and there's a grievance filed on you for sexual harassment when that wasn't the situation, but because of where they're projecting onto you or somebody else that they see, this is sexual harassment. Now, please understand, don't walk away from here and say Bishop Dr. Haynes said sexual harassment doesn't exist. That is not what I said. What I'm talking about is you have to be careful, understand what that looks like, and be cautious when those things happen. Very cautious of when those things happen.
You have to be cautious of not projecting
Absolutely.
what happened to you onto what's happening
Absolutely.
right now.
I want to read what Echo said. Next time I got to bring you on this, Echo, because you're putting up some good stuff. He said, keep your hands to yourself unless I ask you to. I'm just saying.
And
Very
again,
good, Echo. Very good.
Echo, in so many ways, I agree with you in
Mhm.
so many ways, but in other ways, because of a person's what they do, what they give. As a supervisor, if I know that I can realize that one of the ways I can build that rapport with you, because there's an intimidation fact just from the fact that I'm a supervisor or a manager, right? There's an intimidation factor there. So I know that there are some ways I can build rapport with you. Watch this. Jesus with the lady at the well, immediately when she got there, he started asking her questions about her husband. Found that, saying the one you're with, not even your husband, the past five and all of that. He was building rapport with her. He was identifying some stuff. And what did she do? Any defense that she had immediately went away. And now she was attentive because he touched the emotional place. The Greeks in Athens, when Paul began to talk to them in Athens and he began to identify and use some of the hand gestures that they was using at, angling the position of their body to where they could point to the Parthenon up on that hill, right? Up on that mountain. They could point to it every once in a while because that's what they knew, right? And so when I can learn you and learn your language, and I can begin to walk into your space, understanding your language, I can point to the Parthenon every once in a while because that's building rapport with you. Well, that's the same thing with some of these love languages. I'm building rapport with you because I'm understanding who you are. I'm understanding the way you think. Think about it. Peter is writing these things in First Peter, and he's talking about hope and holiness, and he's talking about uh, harmony, and he's talking about submission. And but this is the same person that was cussing folk out and cutting their ear off, right? And Jesus said, "No, that's not how you handle this." But now here Peter is changed his whole story and the way he does things because he has a better understanding of what this really looks like. When we get a better understanding of what physical touch is, what quality time is, what giving words of affirmation and being kind to, when we really understand that, we don't have no problem understanding languages of love, language of relationship. I understand tomorrow is Valentine's Day, quote unquote. But man, how much would you have built up before this just operating in those languages of love?
Mm, mm. I think once we really understand who we are,
Mhm.
because I thought about what you were saying about Paul. We did a study on the book of Galatians, and
Okay.
when Paul came to himself, and that's the word I'm going to use,
Absolutely.
to recognize who he really was,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
who he was called to be, because the Spirit had touched his heart.
Right.
Okay. He then went out to tell the messages, again, opposite of who he was,
Absolutely.
actions. But then when he came back, his love language was about helping to save souls and to
Mhm.
reach out to people. So and in the book of Galatians, that's what he was doing. He was speaking to them about howing to change their lives, howing to do things differently in order to live,
Mhm.
and to thrive. And I think once we have, and that's kind of like a good summation as to how to activate those love languages. And I think it's an excellent statement to make right before Valentine's Day. You know,
Absolutely.
if I really want to encompass a real love thing, I
Right.
mean, real one, I need to know myself. I need to first do a self examination of myself. I need to not only do a self examination of myself, I need to do a self repair of myself,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
my inner self, in order to receive that thing that's coming
Mhm.
with me. Because I can't receive it right
If
if
I'm not
I'm
healed.
right.
Mhm.
If
Absolutely.
I'm not
Absolutely.
healed, if I'm not even thinking right. I mean, my
Mhm.
heart's not right, but my cognition is off too.
Right.
Ab-
I need to get that all in order so that I'm able to receive
Mhm.
again. I'm not talking physical,
Right.
I'm talking relational.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if I want friends, the Bible tells us to first, we have to
Make
be
that
friendly.
sense.
But if I don't know how to be a friend, how do I do that?
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, how do I set that up? So if I want to be able to do it correctly, I have to understand me. I got to understand who I am and some of my own nuances, my own hurts. And yes, go back to what Chantel says, I have to be healed,
Yes.
you know, through the
Absolutely.
other person so that I can be my best self, my authentic self to receive whatever you've given me.
Your whole self.
Absolutely. Paul said to the Colossian church, he said, in the King James, it says, mortify yourself, mortify
Mhm.
your flesh. The NIV says, but now you yourselves are to put off these things: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another,
Mhm.
since you have put off the old man with his deeds and have put on the new man. And then verse 12 says, therefore, as the elect of God, holy, being whole, be separated. He said, holy and beloved, know that you're loved. Put on tender mercy, kindness, humility, meekness. Meekness is not weakness.
No, no.
Meekness is not weakness.
Mm-mm.
Long suffering, bearing with one another, and forgiving one another. Jesus forgave you. So, how much more would it be for you to forgive others? Right? I mean, that's important. I see your affect there. I see it. I see it. I see it. I see it. But we have to walk in that place of forgiveness
Yeah.
because that's part of healing. As
Yeah.
Chantel alluded to earlier, that's that part of healing and wholeness that we have to get to. And it's hard. Please don't get it twisted. It is challenging. It is challenging to have to deal with you, which is why the songwriter said, sweep around your own front door before you try to sweep around mine, because there's some stuff that you got to deal with.
What song is that?
So you can't act like your stuff don't stink.
What song is that, sir? Like what tune was that?
I forgot who wrote that song, but I know,
Sleep around your own front door.
yeah,
Oh my
sweep around
goodness. Oh my
before you
goodness.
try to sweep around mine. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Your own front door. I gotta look that one up. Sleep around your
Right?
own. Okay. All right. All right. Cool. Well, that's true. That's true. Chantel,
Yes, ma'am.
what are your thoughts as we
Well,
work towards wrapping this up?
well, I just think we need to work on ourselves before we can be in concert with anyone else. Work on everything that we have going on. Sweep around our front door.
Williams brothers.
Make make sure it's clean in our area before we try to clean up somebody else's
Yeah.
area. And are able to be able to learn their love languages. We have to know our own. Take care of yourself. Take care of home first before you go to somebody else's house.
My mother told a story. I was young. This was before her stroke. She had a stroke when I was 9 and then another when I was 10. And she wasn't able to speak. But I have to say this. My siblings were like, how do you remember these stories? What I remember the story mom used to say. The lady that was sitting, standing in front of her, she was washing her dishes, looking out the window. And the lady across the street would always wash her clothes and hang them up on the line. And the lady that was washing the dishes would always say, why is that lady hanging up these dirty clothes on this clothesline? And every week, the same thing would happen. She'd wash her clothes and she would stand there washing dishes. And she kept saying, why is she hanging up these dirty clothes on this clothesline? Well, one day she was outside when this lady was washing her clothes. And she looked at those clothes and she said, no, the clothes are clean. But she looked back at her window and her window was dirty. And she had to go herself. She had to evaluate herself like, man, I'm talking about this other situation, but really my stuff was dirty. How many of us?
Mhm. Looking through the
Absolutely.
wrong lens.
How many of us? When we
Mhm.
talk about language, we talk about lens, we talk about perspective, we talk about filters. All of these things are imperative
Mhm.
And it's a lot of work to deal with you. Thank you, Sandra.
Mhm.
Somebody told me the Williams
Because
brothers.
Oh, well, you know what? That's what
LaCrystal
that's what
said.
LaCrista just said. Pastor LaCrista
Mhm.
Brown, she just said, I think that that was the Williams brothers recorded that song.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
thank you, LaCrista
Mhm.
Brown. Yeah.
Because a person could be talking to you, but you're hearing what they're saying the wrong way because it's you're hearing it from a place of
yeah.
trauma and not healing. So that's why I say it's important to
Yep,
heal,
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
then you'll be able to hear.
All of this is important, and we got to.
As we wrap this
It
up, and
is.
I think it was we had a great conversation this afternoon,
Mhm.
right before the the prerequisite to Valentine's Day, um, to get the most out of it, to get the most out of this season, and just to also get the most out of what's coming in 2021. We had a horrific 2020, and to just
Mhm.
get what we can out of 2021, I think is this was a great dialogue for that. I appreciate you. We appreciate you, Bishop Dr. Haynes, for sharing in on this discussion about the love language and not so much the romanticize of it, but the relational piece of it. And I
Relational.
think that as people look at this later on YouTube or rewatch it on any of our channels and our Facebook media pages, they will hopefully walk away from this saying, what worked, and let me do some self-examination on me. I encourage you out there, if you are watching this again, to check out Gary Chapman's Five Languages of Love. I think it's a great thing to look at, and I also think it's a great thought, just like Dr. Haynes and Chantel have said this evening, to start looking in yourself. So once you find out what your love language is, you need to start checking yourself out. You need to start checking out what it is that causes you to be like that. Because I had a thought today, that it wasn't about gift giving, because I love giving gifts, but it's not really about gift giving. It's about those words that come along with the gift giving. And I kind of figured that out today. So I just I encourage you to do that. Chantel, your mother, Dr. Mosley. Hey, Dr. Mosley. She said, nice discussion. Thank you, Dr. Mosley. Um,
Thank you, Mother.
we want you to get something out of this. We really are intentional this year, more intentional than last
Mhm.
year. I think because we're ahead of ourselves in terms of discussions on how to help people to transform, and to come
Mhm.
out of this pandemic better,
Yes,
to come
the
out of
best
this
you
better,
possible.
even in your relationships, being with somebody 24/7 in the house, with the kids, with the spouse, with whoever, siblings, whomever, being there 24/7, you still got to check yourself
Absolutely,
to
Right.
be the
absolutely.
best authentic you and to get all you can. So I again want to say thank you, Dr. Haynes. Thank you, Chantel, for the
And I
power.
wanted to show the book. The Body
Yes.
Keeps the Score.
Hmm.
Can y'all see it? It's
Yes.
a good book. So
It is. It's a
get it.
great book on trauma. Um, it's an intense read. So
Mm.
I say that it's not an easy read. It's an intense read. And also, let me share this, because somebody who may be a person in the workplace, we are doing this. Like I said, we're doing a book study at work. My assistant director, she has gotten this book out. And this is Gary Chapman's book also. Uh, the Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace, Gary Chapman and Paul White. I'm reading that right now. And I'm also reading, I'm just starting another book. It's real controversial. I'm not going to bring that up right now, but very controversial. Yes, get that book. That's the
Hmm.
that's the new one. Put it in
So
front of
this,
the camera again. Yes, that's the five. Raise it up a little bit. That's the 5 languages of love, the secret to love that lasts. And that's the new book of Gary Chapman's. That's the most recent version, correct?
Yes.
Yes. I had an old version years ago that I read, but that's the most recent version. So check it out. Check it out. If you're a reader and like to read, please invest in yourself while you're at home doing nothing. Invest in yourself. Read, 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 read. Okay. Chantel, you want to, oh, Bishop, you want to say something as we wrap this up?
So I want to first say for allowing me to come on. Again, the privilege and honor of being here with you and to represent from this lens those words and echo those words of language of love and holiness. And I also want to just talk show you guys this book again. Again, it's Please Stop Laughing at Me. And it's by Jody Blanco. So that's another one. Child Call It. We've all had to read that book as well. But when I talk about evaluating you, don't use yourself as the rubric. Your rubric has to be an external, and that external has to be the Word of God. It has to be something that helps you to understand who you're supposed to be, so you can then go back and say, this is what I need to take off. This is what I need to take off. And this is what I need to put on. Because if you do it to yourself and evaluate by yourself, when you're not the creator of you, you're going to always agree with yourself. Always. Until conviction happens, you're going to always agree with you. So I'm saying to you, no matter who you are, no matter what your issues are, man, go back and say, you know what, man, I recognize some issues in me. And then don't be afraid. Don't be so prideful, so haughty that you can't say, you know what, man, I need help.
I need help.
And then to seek therapeutic help.
Mm-hmm.
Seek therapeutic help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Qualified, competent therapeutic help.
Yes.
Licensed therapeutic help.
Not Ray.
Okay. Chantel, you wanna end us?
All right, so we're ending now. Please check us out on YouTube. It's called Chantel and Charlene. Go there, like and subscribe. The video will be on YouTube in about 20 minutes, hopefully. And you can always like us on Facebook. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Take care.
All right,
Bye.
Happy V-Day.
All right. Oh, he left?